This is Here Come the Irish. I'm Mike Lowens. A little over a week until Notre Dame travels down to Louisville to take on the Cardinals. I'll be going to that game as well as the Cincinnati UCLA game here on Thursday. I'll be posting a lot of cool content, a lot of cool videos, a lot of the fan experience of the game. So guys, make sure to check out that. Today we got a great interview lined up. Frank Vitovitch from UHND.com, co-owner, editor-in-chief, been doing it for a long time. Got him on the line. How are you doing today, Frank?
Good. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for taking time off your Sunday to come on the show. First question we got for you, starting right off the bat. How did you get into becoming a Notre Dame fan? Was it something that your family was in, or something you kind of picked up on your own? How'd that kind of come about?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I grew up thinking I was a Notre Dame fan because of my dad, because I always remembered watching games with my dad, as a kid. But when I was like, I don't even know, it was after college, so like 24, 25 years old or something, I said something in front of my mom, like, I'm a Notre Dame fan because of Dad, and she was like, what are you talking about? She was like, you have that reversed. And I was like, what do you mean? She was like, your dad became a big Notre Dame fan because of you as a kid. And I was like, well, how the heck did that happen? So apparently I had like a Rudy type moment one day where I was like 5 years old, Notre Dame was on TV, and I apparently looked at my parents and said, I'm going to go to school there one day. And neither one of them had really, been big fans, I guess, before me. But the story that my mother likes to tell as a result is her father was a diehard Notre Dame fan. So my grandfather on that side, he unfortunately passed away before I was born. So my mom likes to say that it's her dad's way of having an influence on me, even though I unfortunately never got to meet him.
That's a cool story. Yeah, I completely understand. You kind of turned your dad into a Notre Dame fan. I kind of got a similar story myself. I'm here in Indianapolis. A lot of my family's IU fans, IU basketball. It's a basketball state. I started watching Quinn and Samardzija, and that's kind of how I turned into a big Notre Dame fan. And then now I go to my dad and my family members all the games. So that's awesome. Are you out there in New York? Is that kind of the area? I know it's kind of a big area for Notre Dame fans out there.
Yep, yeah. I grew up in Pennsylvania, though. So I grew up in a little bit north of Philadelphia, and then migrated up to the greater New York area about 9-10 years ago.
Yeah, definitely all across the country as we watch a game and see all the Notre Dame fan base, but definitely on the East Coast, I know there's a big Notre Dame presence. I went to a game in Pittsburgh in 2015, and I mean, it was completely flooded with Notre Dame fans. I'm sure they're in Philly and New York as well. You get to see all that at all the games.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a...
Yeah, so how did the sports writing begin? Oh, let's see. I think we timed out a little bit here. Let's give him a call back real quick.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, I lost you for a second. So how did the sports writing begin? The sports writing aspect of becoming a Notre Dame fan, all that began?
It kind of innocently enough, I wanted to get into to web design as a career when I was in high school, and just was like, all right, I'll teach myself how to make websites. And I was like, all right, what do I like that I can make a website about that I'll care about? Notre Dame came up. And just kind of started. It started from there, and then it took off, and so to speak. And the site got fairly popular. And actually, I originally been writing for a website that I had created on my own called the Golden Dome, and UHND was actually started by Kyle, who's kind of the co-owner, Kyle Flavin, and he and I just kind of started chatting back and forth online on AOL Instant Messenger to give you an idea of how long ago that was. And we just started chatting, and we're like, hey, why don't we just work on a site together? He's out in the West Coast. I was East Coast, and it was very random that we both had sites, and we were literally same age. Like we graduated high school same year, college same year, all that, and just started working on the site together, and like I said, it took off.
Yeah, it's definitely great to have a partner too, especially when you have your day job as well. All the stuff that goes along with having a website. People don't understand how hard it is to get all the content out there on a daily basis and be up to date with all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. It makes it. There's definitely in some weeks it's it's more challenging than others to try to keep the site updated when work gets crazy.
Yeah, I completely understand. So did you was that the UHND? I think that's 1999 that actually started.
Actually, 97 is when Kyle originally founded it, and it was originally hosted, I think, on like an AOL, like free AOL hosting package, and I think he purchased a domain name though in 97, and then he and I started working together in 99.
I can't imagine back there in 97, 99, those years, how you got so much traffic to the site back then, because I know today you got all the social media and stuff going on where you can get that content out there real easy. I imagine it would have been a little harder, a lot more maybe like word of mouth, or kind of how'd you guys get the marketing part down in the beginning?
Yeah, it was back then we had a lot of free time because we were in high school and college, and what we did was we used to find all the different forums that existed back then. Message boards were, even late 90s message boards were already really popular. So we would go out and just post links to stuff that we've written, post links to the site on any team that we were playing that week. We would post content on their forums and things like that. And then I would say word of mouth was big in terms of getting it out there, but also search engines sent a lot of traffic back then and still do. And ironically, my day job is in search engine marketing, so it helps us continue to keep getting traffic through Google and Bing and whatnot. But back in those days, it was things were a lot different too, just in terms of trying to manage a website. WordPress didn't exist back then, so a lot of the original content is actually kind of lost right now for us because it was all hand coded. So when we wanted to create a new article, we hand coded an HTML page basically, posted it, and eventually we got we got better at finding ways to automate some things. But when we switched the site over to WordPress in 2005, I think, all the articles from 97 up until 2004 are all sitting in a folder somewhere on one of our computers, and just have never made their way back into WordPress.
Well, that stinks. I know sometimes when I'm trying to reference something that I've forgotten or look at an old article, it's so easy just to put it in Google and you can find up old articles about yourself and stuff. And obviously now the technology's changed and stuff like that, but it's really cool to look back and see, oh man, see where I've come from just writing for you guys as well. How much time do you say you put in the website each week? I know myself, people don't understand how hard it is to run a website or just do anything on social media. For me, I would say right now it takes me anywhere from 2.5 to maybe 3.5 hours to do an article, because I want to make sure I'm right about everything. I want to make sure I'm fact checking myself, that when people read the article, I don't misquote a year and someone think it kind of lose credit a little bit. So how much time do you say maybe compared to the off season or during the actual season do you actually put on the website?
Yeah, it's it does. Yeah, it varies a lot. I'd say the type of stuff that we do to the site, I think varies a lot too. Off season, we'll try to fix stuff about the site, add different kind of usability features, fix templates, stuff like that. Kind of do the stuff that you don't have time to do during the season. But I would say, if it's a big game week and work is not going crazy, I could be, 10, 20 hours maybe, if it's a really big game. Cause you think of it, just watching the game alone on a Saturday and then spending 4 or 5 hours after the game updating the site, that's, you're looking at 8, 9 hours just on game day, in terms of doing it. And we've over the years, we've gotten a lot better at finding some good contributing writers, yourself included now, in terms of, taking some of the writing workload off, because for a long time it was just me writing. And as I got farther and farther into my career for my day job, that time became a lot harder to come by. So now we're at a point that where we have a number of kind of recurring authors who are contributing to the site, and it's made it a lot easier for us actually to manage workflow and keep the site more up to date.
Yeah, definitely. I imagine a lot of the articles and stuff that I do, and yourself included, we can do a lot of stuff just from prior knowledge off the top of our head. But the real hard part takes kind of time consuming, just kind of fact checking and then looking up all the information about other teams, make sure all the statistics are right, because that's definitely important for me personally, as well as the websites, making sure that we have a lot of good credibility. How many writers? So I'm busy myself. I coach high school baseball, work out sometimes, and do this as well as a lot of other things. So I don't get a chance to read everybody's article. How many writers do we have at the moment?
Let's see. I would say ones that are writing pretty regularly. There's probably about like 4, including we're probably at like 4, including myself right now, that are doing like regular weekly articles, and then there's a couple other kind of newer writers that have been writing for us as well, who are doing some I'd say not as frequent writing, but will contribute from time to time. So all in, I would say if you include those, maybe like 6 to 7 different contributors right now.
Okay. That's it sounds like a good mix. And the thing I like about the website too is it's nice because you have your day job, I have my day job, and it gives you kind of good mix of something you want to do, something you're passionate about. It's not a full time. It's kind of really flexible. I really like that about it. Have you ever thought about going like full time with the website and just doing this as a career, or what were your thoughts on that?
There's been different times, over the last 20 years. Damn, 20 years sounds weird to say it out loud that we've been doing this for 20 years, but that thought has kind of crossed my head of like, could this become, what I do during the day? And we actually gotten close, a couple times throughout the years of talking to some, larger organizations that were interested, in UHND. But, each time we've actually always kind of leaned back and said, like, we like that it's that we're an independent site. We like that we can kind of do this, as we have time. And kind of put as little or as much into it as we want. And I would say the one thing that I always thought, I think would be a challenge of doing it as a day job of, now, Notre Dame football on a Saturday and, Eagles football, Philadelphia Eagles football on a Sunday are like, there's things you just look forward to all week. And it's, a sense of, it's what you do for fun. And I always wonder, if it were to become the full-time day job, would any of that be lost? Like, would I start to look at it like, oh man, gotta go to work? Or it could be the opposite though too. It could be, you could be sitting there throughout the day thinking like, how is this my job? Like, how do I, how have I made this happen? But I would say there's definitely been thought, at various times. I don't know if that's in our future at any point, but I would say that allure is always kind of out there.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure you got a while longer of work and stuff like that, but too, especially maybe down the road when you retire, you can kind of pick this up as maybe a part-time job too once you're retired from where you work at, that sort of thing. But definitely, I'll be at work and won't be on my phone for 5 or 6 hours, and all of a sudden I see Notre Dame land a big recruit, and it's been 5 or 6 hours, and I'm posting on one of my pages and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm so behind. That kind of stuff is a little bit frustrating as far as having a day job.
Yep.
But I think it's a great mix of doing something, like you said, not getting too. If you did a lot every single day, you might get a little burnout on it. It's great having the kind of stuff you can do when you want to. I have that you've written over 2,000 articles since you've been doing that, and I've noticed that some of those have kind of went big. I wouldn't say like viral, or kind of went on some major websites. If you want to talk a little bit about that. Yeah,
sure. No, it's also crazy to think that I've written that many when you see the numbers. I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. If anything, I'd love to be able to have time to to write some more on a regular basis. But I mentioned some have gotten picked up and quoted, and I remember there's 2 times that I remember like UHND getting quoted that I was like, damn, that's pretty cool. One was it was 1999, I guess, and I came home from school and high school at the time, and there was a fax because again, 1999, those things were still used a lot, from a family friend from Sports Illustrated. And Sports Illustrated ran like a little, one-page feature on Notre Dame on the internet, and UHND was listed there. I was like, all right, that's pretty cool. Here I am. At that time, I was, 17 or 18, and, there was this weird, side project website that I'm working on was in Sports Illustrated, which was pretty cool. So that was one. And then another fun one was, what year was it? It was 2009. Was it 9? Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. It was when Dane Christ got hurt. So that was, it was Weiss's last year. Yeah, 2009 against, what was that, Washington State. And Colin Coward quoted, an article that I wrote on air, and, was like, UHND.com, a Notre Dame football website, wrote this today. And he just rattled off something that I had said about how the injury would impact, Notre Dame's quarterback position moving forward. And that was cool. We didn't get a lot of traffic out of it, but it was still pretty cool because somebody sent me the clip, and I was like, that is awesome.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Colin Coward's definitely on the top of the business. Having him quote you, especially not in a good manner, it sounds like too. Sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah. It was a positive. It was at least for for the site. But there's been a few of those kind of instances over the years that are always. It's always pretty cool when you see it. At one point, we were actually we had a kind of a more of a relationship with USA Today, and there were a couple of their USA Today College Football Weekly they have that I had some articles written in, and actually 1 year for their college football preview, like the actual USA Today college football preview that you buy on newsstands. I had written an article, and it was actually the Notre Dame cover story, which was also, again, pretty cool that, I was in a train station, with a coworker, and I was like, hey, check this magazine out. He was like, yeah. And then I showed him the byline, and he was like, get it. He was like, no way. And, so those kind of things are definitely a lot of fun when they do happen.
Yeah, it makes all the hard work and the stuff, the dedication you've done to the site kind of pay off and get some more recognition as well. I hope we got more of those in the future to come for you and I as well. Maybe some more recognition in the future.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Kind of transitioning here a little bit. I know I've seen you just in recent memory since I've been writing for UHND.com. You went to some cool venues. I've seen you at Texas. You're at the playoffs last year. I'm sure you've been a Notre Dame fan longer than I have. So what kind of cool biggest games have you went to home and away that you actually been in person?
Ooh, let's see. I would say coolest venue, that I've been to so far was that game at Fenway back in 2015, when we played Boston College in Fenway Park. It was just an awesome. I mean, Fenway itself is something every sports fan should go see because it's an amazing place, and I do not like Boston sports in the slightest. So I say that strictly out of respect for the stadium, but that place was it was cool to be there for a football game, and went with Kyle was went with us, and then a couple other friends that we've made from the website. Actually, funny side note on that was the one guy who was with us on that trip. He's become a good friend, and that we met him through the website and have become close enough friends that when he got married in 2014, I was his best man, which is kind of a crazy story that so I got to make jokes about people meeting online because he and I basically met online, and I ended up being his best man. So that was kind of just like a fun side note. But other than, I'd say that, so Fenway, coolest venue from that perspective. In terms of big games, I've had the fortune or maybe misfortune of being at the playoff last year, being at the national championship game, following the 2012 season, which was awesome to go to those games, but obviously the outcome wasn't wasn't the most ideal for us. But let's see, some other cool venues. The Clemson game in 2015, despite the torrential downpours that happened throughout, was just that was a really cool, unique environment. Texas was pretty cool as well. It being in Austin might have had a little to do with that, because Austin's just an amazing city. One of the other, I'd say, lower key ones that I thought was really cool was I really liked UVA when we were at that game in 2015 too, and that was just it was a cool environment. I mean, it's not, you don't think of it as like a loud, crazy, hostile environment, but it was like a beautiful campus, and the stadium itself was just it was pretty cool, I would say. So that's one that's like not you don't necessarily think of it as like a great venue, but I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, man, sounds like you've been in a lot of cool places. Definitely, now that I've graduated college a few years ago, got a full-time job, definitely want to start going to a lot more road games. Just in my recent history, I went to the Michigan State one a few years back, the Northwestern last year, and then going to the Big House this year. Have you been to the Big House yet by chance?
I have not. It's one that I really, it's one of those kind of Notre Dame bucket list items for me yet. This year thought about going, but also my wife is a Texas A&M alum, and I have yet to be to a Texas A&M game, and we have tickets to the A&M game that weekend, so I will not be going, in person this time around. But hopefully one day I'll see Notre Dame play Michigan there.
Yeah, I definitely imagine Notre Dame will probably schedule a home series here over the next few decades. I would be during your lifetime. I'm sure they'll play a few more times at the Big House.
Right.
Some of those places you touched on. So I'm not a Boston sports fan in general, but I am a Red Sox fan. Watch a lot of the games on there. But Fenway Park, that sounds like an awesome trip. Hopefully, maybe sometime in my lifetime they'll go back there. As well as I heard Yankee Stadium is a cool trip. Seems like Notre Dame's played there like maybe three times during the Kelly era. And then the playoffs, I was pretty close to going with you last year. I just didn't end up pulling the trigger there. And then Clemson here in the next few years. Hopefully, obviously next year the Tigers are coming to South Bend. That'll be, I think, the biggest game in South Bend since USC came there. And then Texas, that looked like a cool venue. And then, like you said, like Virginia, I went to Northwestern last year. Just in general, just cool being on the road, especially when there's a lot of Notre Dame fans there. Like last year, I'd say it's about 40% Notre Dame fans at the Virginia game. Then also I heard like the USC game was like 40% Notre Dame fans, especially anywhere on the East Coast. But just going to home game, it's always fun going to home games and stuff. But road venues and stuff, especially when the Irish went on the road, it's cool taking over the stadium.
Oh yeah, next year also the Ireland game. That is one that I'm still mad at myself for not going in 2012. So I plan on changing that next year and heading out to Dublin for that game. I had friends who went to the one in 2012, and they said it was an awesome experience. And since then, I've actually been to Dublin twice now, and it's an amazing city. So I cannot wait for that one next year.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that they're going back there again so soon. I guess Kelly and everybody must have loved it. I heard last time they went there was like 30,000 people flying in from the United States all the way over there. And then I think, did they play there? So I think it was before I was born, but didn't they play there once prior against Navy, like in the early 90s?
Yeah, I want to say it was not, off the top of my head, I should know this, but I want to say it was 96. Notre Dame, I think it was 96. Notre Dame played Navy there. Wasn't in Avila Stadium, but it was I think it was 96.
It's funny because you and I are some of the few people who can actually just quote years off the top of my head. Sometimes I'll be walking down the Indiana State Fair or wherever it may be and say, hey, go Irish. And they'll say, yeah, I went to a game when they played USC this year. I'm like, no, you didn't go that year because Notre Dame only plays USC at home on even number or odd number years or something like that. That's funny.
Yeah.
What would you say is the loudest venue that you've been to, or loudest game you've been to, or maybe the most obnoxious fans, or have you ever had any to deal with that?
Oh yeah, I would say loudest venue was Clemson. That place was insanely loud, and it was an awesome environment. Most obnoxious, hands down, were the Alabama fans I sat by at the national championship game, because every single first down they would just get up and yell, "Roll Tide, roll!" like every first down, even when they were up like 28-0. I was like, "Can you guys just not, anymore? Like, you've gotten 40 first downs at this point. We don't need to yell it every time." And they were just, I would say they were the most obnoxious I've dealt with at a Notre Dame game.
And the thing is, we know going to Notre Dame games, Notre Dame fans are overly nice to fans. When I went to the Florida State game last year, I found my way over to the Florida State area and was kind of, kind of doing my own version of the Florida State fight song, except changing the lyrics a little bit because I wanted to rub it in, especially what happened in 2014. And I was just thinking, what if Florida State was beating Notre Dame by this much? I guarantee the Florida State fans would be a lot more obnoxious. So I was yelling, "No bowl game for you," is all kinds of stuff. I had to enjoy it. I mean, nothing too bad because, Notre Dame fans are the nicest. I go to Northwestern. They're super nice there, too. I haven't had any problems with that. But I got to rub it in a little bit sometimes, too.
Yeah. Michigan fans not walking out. What year was that? I've seen Notre Dame beat Michigan at Notre Dame Stadium like 4 times, but there was one game, I think it was the 2010 game. Yeah, that was the one that we lost even after the long Kyle Rudolph touchdown. But walking out that game, the Michigan fans were just they were insanely annoying, especially because it was your first year under Kelly, and they were quite annoying that day.
Yeah, I always when Notre Dame's got a big score, I'm always thinking, okay, if I was on the road right now, how would they be treating us? So I always think about that. I never go too far, but I'll just cheer a little louder or do something like that, so I completely get it. Luckily for me as a Notre Dame fan, I think it went to maybe like 25 games or so. Notre Dame's only lost 2, knock on wood, going to the big house. Yeah. But, a lot of those when I first started going to games and stuff, we weren't going to the big games. It was a lot of the kind of the pushovers, but still, good record nonetheless. But so I called up the Michigan ticket office this year. I said, "Where is Notre Dame's section at?" Because I wanted to make sure I got kind of in that little niche where Notre Dame's at. But we'll see how they treat me. Like I said, I haven't been to a lot of games where Notre Dame's lost, so we'll have to see how fans treat you their way. And hopefully I don't have to deal with that too much last few years, a lot of winning. Kind of moving on, some other questions getting on today. So living at the New York area, have you went to, would you say there's a huge Notre Dame presence out there, and you went to a lot of those games? Do you think the Irish will ever play Syracuse at the Carrier Dome? I think down the road they're scheduled to, but I know a lot of the time they play at MetLife or Yankee Stadium. You think here in recent history you'll be able to play at the Carrier Dome?
I don't know. It'd be interesting if they did. I know they do always like to get that Notre Dame wants those games at MetLife as much as possible, just because it's a lot easier for the Notre Dame fans to get to them. And I know you have all the Syracuse side, who gets really annoyed anytime those games are moved and they're not in the Carrier Dome. I was at the last Notre Dame Syracuse game at MetLife, and it was all Notre Dame fans for the most part. Which again, if I was a Syracuse fan, would annoy me. But that stadium in general is just, as an Eagles fan, I'm not the biggest a fan of MetLife Stadium. But I don't know. Maybe it would be. I would say I would love to go to the Carrier Dome as a Notre Dame fan just to see a new stadium. But knowing kind of how the schedules have been working out and the decisions that end up getting made, I would be a little bit surprised if one was there. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'd like to go there sometime. Like I want to try to go as many stadiums as possible, obviously. But I think it sounds like it's been a little give and take for Notre Dame and Syracuse, where last year they played at Yankee Stadium when it's technically supposed to be Notre Dame's home game, and then they played like at MetLife Stadium when it was supposed to be Syracuse home game. So maybe staying away from the Carrier Dome because Syracuse hasn't had the best of luck playing against, or Clemson hasn't had the best of luck playing against Syracuse. So I think it's a kind of good idea by Swarbrick. It could have came back to them last year, but I think playing at neutral site games, especially for Notre Dame when they always have more fans, I think is a good idea.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that tailgate event you had going on there at the playoffs. What website did you say you were there with?
Oh, that was Ryan from Her Loyal Sons had posted that tailgate and did an awesome job of getting a lot of people to it and really putting together an awesome tailgate. sadly it was probably the highlight of the day based on how the game ended up playing out. But the tailgate was awesome, and Ryan did a good job of that, and they do a lot of good things on their website too. So that's definitely one worth checking out for if anybody's not familiar with that site. It's herloyalsons.com. They put up some good content. He does a weekly simulation of the game using the old NCAA 2014 video game that they have.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So how long did it take you to get all that the green hair and everything all prepared for the game?
That's quick. I sadly have done that too many times now that I know that it's pretty easy to do. It's basically just colored hairspray that you spray on. It takes about 5 minutes. It takes longer to get out, but it only takes about 5 minutes to actually put it on.
Yeah, walking into to work Monday morning with green hair, probably people get a lot of looks. Not everybody understands.
Luckily, it washes out. It's usually about two. You need to wash your hair like twice to get it all out, but it comes out pretty easily.
See, I would get that, but a lot of people aren't the Notre Dame fans that would get that. A lot of people in South Bend would. My buddy has a wedding this fall. I'm like, please tell me that it's not on a Saturday, especially for a big game. But luckily, it's on Friday, so we dodged a bullet there. Saw that you got to hang out with Mike Gold Jr. Any other alumni there or athletes that you get to hang out with the tailgate?
No, there wasn't. There was a couple. So the Golick, their tailgate was kind of next to ours.
Okay.
So it was just kind of a happy accident for us that we were able to to talk to him and meet him. Couldn't be nicer. And he was awesome. Just and very. Anybody that walked up to him, he was more than happy to talk to. So yeah, I would say it looked like we saw some other former players walking around, but we didn't really have a chance at that occasion anyway to talk to them.
Outside that tailgate, what are some? I'm sure over the years, going to a lot of Notre Dame games and doing a lot of writing, maybe you're interviewing some people. What are some other alumni or famous players and some of the best people you've met in person?
Yeah, I would say probably highlight came actually just this last fall. Over the years have kind of communicated back and forth, from time to time with Randy Kinder, who used to play, for the Irish, and kind of kept in touch with him a little bit. I knew he was going out to that game, to the Michigan game, and he had mentioned to me, hey, the Lose Lads Foundation, has the our their annual, I guess, fundraiser, that weekend. You guys, you guys should come. And it was an awesome event. And I knew Lou Holtz because it was Lou's Lads was going to be there, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, let's go. So me and at the time, she was fiance, but now wife, went to the Lose Lads Foundation event that day. And it just so happened that we ended up getting a seat right in the front row, right in front of Lou, basically. And as he was done and he was making his way out, I was able to at least introduce myself, say hi, and get a picture taken with him. And for me, that was like meeting childhood hero of getting a chance to see him in person, get a picture with him. So that was hands down, I would say one of the greatest moments, from that regard. But in addition, we used to podcast on UHND like back before podcasting was as popular as it is now. I would say it was like 2007, 2008. We did a lot of podcasting, and during that time, we ended up doing some interviews with some awesome players. Randy Kinder. Who else do we have? Lee Becton, Michael Stonebreaker, a lot of the guys from the 88 team we ended up getting in touch with and talking to. And then, again, highlight there was we got to interview Rocket Ishmael. And that was, like I said, like 2008, I think it was. And also, like, Rocket was the player that I loved growing up as a Notre Dame fan. So getting to interview him was just, awesome. And then since we were able to meet him in person a few times. I'd say highlight of that national championship game trip was me and the guys that I went with went out the night before. We were walking back to our friend's dad's car because he was giving us a ride back to the hotel. And I forget who in our group said it, but they looked and they were like, "Is that Rocket Ishmael across the street?" And it was. And it was Rocket Ishmael and Irv Smith. And we ran over, started talking to him. And we have this awesome picture of the four of us with Rocket and Irv, just on the streets of Miami the night before the national championship game.
Yeah, I was actually looking up some photos on the website and stuff like that, just to post for this interview today. And I actually saw that picture yesterday. I know what you're talking about. Actually, we had Irv Smith. We had Irv Smith on the podcast here a few months back, and I've been talking to him. I talk to him maybe once a week. He's a really cool guy, man, and really cool. They came on the show. Yeah. Super nice. But yeah, Lou Holt.
So many of the former Notre Dame players are just awesome people. We haven't had any of all the ones that we've met. I can't think of any where I was like, they weren't awesome, and they weren't just really down to earth and accommodating and kind of welcoming.
Yeah, it seems like everyone I've talked with and dealt with, they love the pageantry of Notre Dame and they support them out there. It's not like just a stepping stone to the NFL or anything like that. Had Lisa Kelly, I think she wrote for UHND.com at one point on here, and she interviews a lot of the players and stuff like that. And she just, all the stories and stuff that she talks about is just great. And all the players we have on here, it's they're all super nice and they love Notre Dame just as much as the fans do. And it's really cool to see.
Yeah, definitely.
Kind of transitioning to some of the last questions we got for you. What are your thoughts on the future? I know I wrote an article about this a few weeks back. Your thoughts on the future of the green out? I know Penn State's got that white out, and then Michigan has the yellow, and then Louisville's having the blackout against Notre Dame. What are your thoughts? You think that's something that's going to definitely pick up with the help of social media and different outlets now?
I hope so. I know there's some in the fan base that don't necessarily, like it. I love it. I love that, when you kind of just seeing the green pop on TV or when you're there in kind of in person. I mean, I think from time to time, we've kind of gone full green with our designs on UHND. So personally, I'm a huge fan of it. And I'd love to see Notre Dame keep doing that and really promoting it and kind of taking it to the next level. The Michigan game last year was, hands down, I think the best, example of them, really pushing it and it coming, being a success. I think this year's is going to be a little bit challenging since the shirt is not green this year like it was last year. That alone gave it kind of a good base. To start with. So this year it'll be interesting to see just, how, if it's as successful, but, I would love it. If they did the shirt green every year, I would love it. So, we'll see. I do like that Notre Dame is really putting more of an effort into creating those kind of environments. Just in general, I think there's still a lot of work, that's really needed to kind of find that nice balance between, being a very welcoming fan base, but also creating more of a hostile environment when we do have those big games. So it's nice to see Notre Dame putting in work.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it would be too hard to just put on the ticket that there's a green out, just to let people know, especially people don't have social media. But I know in the past, I think it was the 2011 game against USC that they had the navy blue towels. I'm not sure how the sponsor worked for that. And I know one game, I think it was 2013. I don't know off the top of my head if that was the exact year, but when they played Boston College, I got a green pom-pom from the Kelly Cares Foundation, and that was really cool too. So I'm they've done it in the past. I went to the Big Ten hockey championship game. Obviously, it's only 5,000 people, but they gave out towels there. So I thought if they just did it for one game, we have a whole year in advance to get a sponsor for that or something like that. You could get 50 of them on the T-shirt. It doesn't really matter, just as long, or the towels, as long as it's green, something to wave around there. I think it would just make it just that much more of a better environment. And anything I think that we can do as fans or to help Notre Dame get that just slight edge to win the game, since we're not on the field, would be great.
Yeah.
What would you say, since the impact of social media has had on your website? Kind of transition here, some of the last questions. What would you say the impact of social media just recently, and like Facebook and Twitter, all those websites, has had on your website?
I'd say it's actually interesting timing to say that, because it's one area that that we are trying to improve upon. I mean, obviously it's a great source of of traffic, and getting getting our articles and getting our content out there. It's the one area though too that of the limited time that you have in a week, I end up spending most of it on the site itself, not necessarily getting out and engaging as much on say Twitter and Facebook as we could. So that's actually something that we're going to have some help with here for the season. But I mean, when you get things there, or when you get posts to get shared, like the one you did just yesterday that got retweeted by Barstool and other large kind of sites like that. I mean, you could see the traffic, and you could see kind of coming in, and you could see the difference it makes in the articles that don't get much traction on social media, and the ones that do. And it's not hard to usually predict the ones that are going to do well on social media. The ones it's funny when you do articles with a lot of research, a lot of statistics that are all about kind of the X's and O's of football. Those don't seem to to light up social media nearly as much as the ones that are, say, maybe a little more controversial, or maybe slightly trolling in some ways. But it's interesting to look back and see which ones do get kind of go viral, or to a lesser extent than maybe the others. And when I always look at it, I know that the purist in me is like, well, why the ones that we spend all this time on that have like great X's and O's, analysis type content, they don't get shared as much. Sometimes a 300-400 word article that is just like commenting on somebody's bad take about Notre Dame will light up social media, and it'll get shared hundreds of times. So it's always fun to sit back and again try to find that balance of we don't want to write stuff that is intentionally trolling all the time just for the sake of getting shares and getting traffic. But it's like trying to find that balance of like, well, occasionally maybe we do one that is meant to say like poke at Michigan fans or USC fans, and then kind of see what happens after the fact.
Yeah, I completely agree. And a lot of the times, those articles that do get a little more attention when you're poking fun at somebody, it's good not to be biased and like support it with facts and stuff like that. Like last year when everybody was thinking that Michigan was better than Notre Dame for whatever reason, even though Notre Dame had beaten them, and Notre Dame had beaten Northwestern by even more points than Michigan did, and Michigan was beating up on some scrubs. So yeah, definitely those articles, but make sure, obviously, like what we discussed earlier, is making sure you have the facts and numbers to back it up. But I definitely appreciate that that the titling, that you'll anytime you want to edit my title in an article, feel free to. Because you put reminder, Notre Dame has never scheduled an FCS opponent. That seemed to really pop off the page. So anytime, feel free to edit my title, because the title can definitely make or break you sometimes, it seems like.
Oh yeah, especially on social media, because that's what people see. So yeah, that's another thing too, that you you'll know, like sometimes when you come up with one that you're like, all right, this is gonna get people fired up, so let's go with it.
Yeah, definitely, certainly. Moving towards the end, what are your thoughts on Notre Dame staying independent? Obviously, being in the conference, you get that extra game, that sort of thing. That's a big conversation. But I think just from a fan perspective, I'm glad Notre Dame's independent. I like playing some of the teams like Purdue or Michigan State, some of those teams, as well as I know we have 5 conference games we're obligated to the ACC right now. I like the flexibility, because I want to go to a lot of different places. I'm not going this year, but like at Georgia, and we're playing at Texas A&M in the future, Arkansas, Alabama. I like having an independent schedule, just as little from my own perspective, because I want to go to a lot of different road games. If we played in the ACC and had like 9 conference games, they'd only limit us to 3 non-conference games a year, and maybe a couple of those have to be like scrubs. So I think just from a fan perspective, I want to play Notre Dame to stay independent, because I want to go to as many different venues and watch Notre Dame play as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, my take on it is Notre Dame should stay independent forever. And the only thing that should even make the idea of joining a conference like a thought that they entertain is if, at some point in the future, they're forced to, based on, something like, if the college football playoff, scenarios or the college football playoff, requirements were such that, Notre Dame needed to be in a conference to be able to get in. That would be, the only way I would say that it should even be, should be considered. Staying independent is part of what makes, Notre Dame as unique as it is. And that shouldn't even be a thought for the decision makers at Notre Dame. Like I said, unless there's a scenario and Notre Dame has to choose between, independence and the ability to be in the college football playoffs. If that scenario ever exists, then obviously, you have to, you have to entertain it, and you have to, at that point, most likely, follow suit and get into a conference. But at the same time, with where Notre Dame's at, from, just the Notre Dame brand, I can't envision any scenario where, where the college football playoff committee could even try to make a demand like that. You can't have the college football playoffs if Notre Dame is not, at least kind of in a possibility. So I think Notre Dame's independence will be safe, and hopefully for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, last year, who did Clemson play in the ACC championship? Pittsburgh, who Notre Dame beat, and then Ohio State. Ohio State played Northwestern, who Notre Dame beat at Northwestern. So I mean, that's just an extra game, really. Than a lot of those schools have played FCS opponents or smaller schools throughout the year. So I don't think that's an argument that's anybody's going to bring up anytime soon. I don't think it's anything that's going to be a requirement anytime soon. So yeah, definitely agree with you on that. Kind of moving on here. Kind of the last question we got for you. What are your thoughts on this upcoming season? Maybe you don't have to give us any predictions if you don't want to, but what's your kind of outlook for this upcoming season?
Well, I'm working on the preseason prediction post tonight, actually. So every year I go through and the week before the season starts and go game by game. Everything that that I've heard and read and know of the team at this point. Here's where I think or how the season will play out. I'd say I'm still kind of on the fence about it in terms of which games I think Notre Dame will win and which ones they might lose this season. I would say anything less than 10 wins this year I think would be a big disappointment based on just the last 2 years, the talent that Notre Dame's got, specifically on the defensive line. It's not something that I'm trying to think if Notre Dame's had a defensive line as good as the one that they're going to have this year in my lifetime, and maybe those late 80s, early 90s defenses that had some some really strong and future NFL players on them. But that's kind of where I keep going back to when I'm thinking about this year is. Yeah, there's question marks at linebacker still, but I look at the secondary, I look at our safeties, I look at the defensive line specifically, and I think who's going to score a lot on that defense, even with some of the questions that remain at linebacker. And then on offense, I can't see the offense being any worse, taking any steps back from where it was last year, and actually think the offense is going to be a lot better this year because you're going to have a full, kind of that full off season of Book being the guy, and the offense really being built around him. Whereas with Wimbush last year, Notre Dame knew what they had at the start of the season, and a lot of the off season was spent, on an offense catered to his strengths, which were not necessarily the strengths of Ian Book. And I look at that and I go, well, they were as good as they were on offense, in that scenario. I just think that they're going to improve a lot on offense this year. So I would say minimum 10 games, getting back to the playoffs. I don't know. I think it's the easiest analysis ever, heading into a season, this year is the game, this season, really hinges on the Georgia game. If you go down to Athens and you win that game, anything is possible for this team this year. If you go down and you lose a close one, then maybe the playoffs are still a possibility for you. But everything really hinges on that one. I think there's a lot being made about some other games being really tough that might not necessarily be. I think Michigan is getting insanely overhyped, as always. They lost just as much on defense, as Notre Dame did, but for some reason, again, the narrative is that Michigan's the better team, and that they're ranked higher. Notre Dame has had challenges in the Big House over the last 10 years, but that's a game that I think Notre Dame will win. If anything, I think one game that really worries me that hasn't been getting talked about as much is the UVA game. It comes on the heels of the Georgia game, which is going to be a battle. So Notre Dame is going to come back from that, and it's a night game. Come flying back from Atlanta, so it's not. Atlanta to South Bend isn't that long of a flight, but that the team's going to be getting back real late / early Sunday, and then they're going to be preparing for a UVA team that's going to be pretty good with a dual threat quarterback who. Notre Dame has problems when they face teams like that. So that's one game that I think might not be getting talked about enough. That is is worrisome, to me at least.
You thinking like the?
So I would say.
You thinking like the
10 wins is my thought though.
You thinking the 1993 effect right there, where Notre Dame, I think when they beat Florida State, they ended up losing like Boston College. Was that the next week? Is that what you're thinking with the?
Yeah,
you
see that a lot. Notre Dame after those really big games. It's it's a lot to get prepared for. I think this first two games should be nice tune-up games for Notre Dame, and everybody knows the season's really going to hinge on that game, and they know the pressure and the narratives, I should say, that are written that Notre Dame can't go on the road and win big games. That's just the narrative. Whether or not it's fair, it's probably a whole other debate. But until Notre Dame goes to a Georgia and wins on the road, that's what people are going to be saying. So we'll see. If they can pull that off, then there's no outcome to this season that would surprise me.
Yeah, and definitely what we were touching on. It seems like I'm sure you've dealt with this. If you pick Notre Dame to lose, you're not a great fan. You'll probably see in the comments a little bit. If you picked them to win, you're a little bit biased. But that's kind of the way it is when you're a fan writing about your team. Sometimes you obviously want to trust your team a little bit more. But I think this year definitely, like you said, that Georgia game. That game's going to be huge. I just hope that game's close, because I think even if Notre Dame lose that close game and if they run the table the rest of the year, and they can at least keep that Georgia game close, that would be huge. Like in the back of my mind, I'm thinking Georgia could have easily won the national title 2 years ago, and we could have easily beat them that year. And then last year they should have beat Alabama, but then in the Sugar Bowl they got beat by Texas. So I'm like, they're beatable. But then again, I feel like I don't know, that game's either way. I could see Notre Dame losing big or winning that game. It's just Georgia seems like they're right up there with Clemson and Alabama. But then again, looking at that Sugar Bowl, I guess a lot of SEC teams kind of have letdown games when they don't make the playoffs in that Sugar Bowl. It's kind of past history. But yeah, that's definitely the big game. And then Michigan, I can ramble on and spit off all kinds of stats. But I think it's kind of a disservice all the voters are doing, because Ohio State just sees that Michigan's being ranked up top. I'm not sure if they're ranked ahead of Ohio State in every poll, or they might not be, but every year they put Michigan way up there and just makes Ohio State even more mad to beat them, which I know Notre Dame has a history of, we've lost some big games here in recent memory, but Michigan is by far less, they've done a lot worse than the Irish have, and they're always way up there. So that seems like it always puts a big target on Michigan's back, luckily for us.
Yeah, definitely. And we could spend probably another hour just talking about Michigan and how they're overrated right now. Because some of the things that I've read about them going into this year are just kind of hilarious. Especially knowing that how their season ended. I can't imagine a scenario where Notre Dame gets blown out by a rival to end the season, gets blown out in a bowl game, and then gets hyped up as a top 5 team the next the very next summer. I can't see that scenario playing out, but that's essentially what happened to Michigan, and people seem to forget that they got blown out by Ohio State and then Florida. So.
I know, like the last 2 games of the year, yeah, we could ramble on that forever, and especially like last year when Michigan was supposed to be better than Notre Dame, and we can talk all day about Desmond Howard on College Game Day, how completely biased he is, and how lack he knows about college football. It's just crazy.
Yep.
Let me see. I think that's all we got here. Really, that's all the questions I have. If you want to stick around for a little bit after I close out the show here, I'll let you go here in a second, but. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we kind of end up the podcast?
No, I don't think so. Thanks for having me, man. It was a lot of fun just chatting Notre Dame football with you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Like I said, just stick around here for a second. I'll wrap this up. Thanks for guys for watching. Had Frank on here today. Co-owner, editor-in-chief of UHND.com. Has been around 1997. He started there around 1999. An encyclopedia for Notre Dame. It's definitely great to hear his thoughts on the upcoming season, all the cool games and events and stuff he's done through his Notre Dame writing. Thanks for watching. I'll be at the Cincinnati-UCLA game here next week, posting some stuff from that, and then going to Notre Dame-Louisville, trying to post as many videos as I can so you guys can see that aren't at the game what the fan experience is. So thanks for watching, guys. Football season's almost here for the Irish. Miami and Florida just played yesterday, so college football is back. Thanks.